In 2020, we had our first 8-figure year. And all of that really just kind of compounded from all the experience that I had, because even though I was saving money in college and in law school, the ability to not have too much loans and debt is what helped me be able to reinvest so quickly back into my business. So the importance of making the right financial decisions in college, in grad school, will ultimately catch up to you years later. It's not just let me borrow this money so I can get my education. You should treat it as if that debt is never going to go away, because it really doesn't. And it's going to haunt you until you figure out how to take care of it. So I think that anyone that learns how to build their credit and manage their debt early on, it's really a recipe for success, and it sets them up so that they can invest in themselves more quickly and more abundantly when that time comes.
Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul. Today's guest is Awad, who is an immigrant lawyer with an amazing dream journey to share. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day? To have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want? To be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com. While you're there, you can sign up for a monthly email where I share the best articles I read this month, let you know about upcoming episodes, and share a little wisdom. You can also listen to coaching calls under the Coaching Calls tab. I also share the most interesting articles I read every week on Facebook at facebook.com/Richer Soul. And there's also a Facebook group where you can ask questions and interact with other listeners. Today's quote comes from Darren Hardy. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge. We're going to talk about that today. Listen in to Ali's story and where he stood as a young kid and through his teenage years, and how he stood up to those challenges. Before we chat about that, last week we had on David Rural, who shared how to get more done by noon than most people do all day. Did you do anything to improve your schedule to get more done this past week? Imagine a day when you're done by noon and you have the freedom to live life. That's real harmony. Conquering time is super important, and I keep working on this. The 12-week year has served me well in being able to focus, and I find I get more efficient every quarter as I keep implementing small changes that over time compound into making my life simpler. At some point, I need to add another person to my team to handle some of the things that I probably don't want to do anymore, and some of the tasks I probably should be doing, but don't. In order to do that, I have to prepare. And one area that I was going to turn over was email. But instead, I just started unsubscribing to everything and shifting the email that I kind of wanted but never looked at to another email. I just got a new book, Eliminate Email by Cal Newport. Let's see how that works out. One less thing to worry about. Today's guest is Ali Awad, who shares his immigrant story and the power of showing up and knowing what you want and what you don't. Just remember, where you start has nothing to do with where you end up. Ali Awad is one of the most followed injury lawyers in America. He grew up in a small town in Dalton, Georgia, where he learned to speak Arabic at home, English at school, and Spanish with his friends. At a young age, he started multiple online businesses, and by middle school reached $10,000 a week in eBay sales. He studied abroad in China, Mexico, Brazil, and Turkey, and loves communicating with people from all walks of life. By 24, he earned his doctorate in law and a master's in business, making him one of the youngest JDMB graduates in the entire state of Georgia. Ali combined his communication, business, and online skills to create a digital law firm that handles personal injury cases all over the country. Before age 30, he made over $10 million in personal injury settlements and became one of the fastest growing law firms in the Southeast. He also owns a media company where he teaches lawyers, doctors, and other professionals how to brand themselves digitally and generate clients through social media. He is the one and only CEO lawyer. Let's meet our guest. Welcome to Rich Your Soul, Ali Awad. It's great to have you join us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to learn from you. We always like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
Contrary to popular belief, school does not teach you about money. They don't teach you about taxes. They don't teach you about financial literacy and money management, accounting, just honestly the basics. So I grew up in a very entrepreneurial household. My dad was a mechanical engineer, but because he didn't get his citizenship until 2017, he wasn't really able to get just any job. So he had to basically make his own job, right? And so as an immigrant family, we just had to make do with what we had. And so that kind of manifested itself in a mechanic shop early on. So I started changing tires when I was about 7 years old, and I had my first workplace injury when I was 8. And so I kind of, when I tell people that story, they kind of think it's weird that you're 7 years old, and they compare me to like a niece or a nephew or a child that they have. Like, man, I can't imagine my 7-year-old kid doing that. Well, that's how it was. My first workplace injury was when I was 8. And, all we knew was that if we didn't make money by the end of the week, we wouldn't be able to pay the rent or pay the light bill or whatever, even pay the mechanic that we had, and we would have problems. So it was a constant hustle every single day. We had to hustle. We had to work for getting that extra $5 when someone had a nail in their tire. I was the guy that was flagging them down from the street, like, yo, come on into the shop. I'll plug your tire. And I'm like 4 foot tall, and I look like I've just been, swimming in a sea of tires. But that was me, and I had a record of being able to change 4 tires in 20 minutes. So I grew up in that mechanic shop, and I at a young age, we've always had the scarcity mindset that money is just not abundant, and it was difficult to come by. And for some reason, no matter what we did, it was hard to save money. So I learned the hard way that you could have the strongest work ethic, and you could be literally working your face off every single day, but that didn't necessarily translate into financial success. And a big part of that was because, I was working with my younger brothers my younger brother and 2 older brothers. So there's 4 of us. We would all put this money together. We'd all work at the shop together, save up that money, give it to my dad. And my dad, who had 10 younger siblings, who each of those siblings had 5 to 10 children, he was basically like the grandfather of the family because his dad passed away when he was young. So all of the money that we were making would go to my dad, and he would use that to take care of the rest of the family. So no matter what happened, we were always broke because all the money that we worked for just dissipated and it disappeared every single time. And it seemed like no matter what we did, we could never get ahead. And it wasn't until I was maybe in college that I realized, man, like if we just invested this money properly and started really creating a business and building it correctly, we might be able to hold on to some of it. And so I learned the hard way that you should not treat your business like your personal bank account, that your business needs to function separately, and you need to get to a point where your business can pay you a salary and you're just an employee. The rest of the money belongs to the business. If you start treating it like your own personal piggy bank, you'll never have enough money to spend in marketing, advertising, and hiring more employees, and infrastructure, systems. I learned that the hard way. It took me about 20 years or so, and I still haven't quite figured it out, but I'm getting there. That's where we are right now.
It is very much a journey. And I don't think people realize, especially with immigrant families, that certain societal cultures are, you're expected to, when you have success, and even though you didn't have tremendous success working in there, to share money going back to, because I'm assuming, was a lot of the family back in your homeland, or were they all here in the U.S.?
Yeah, so we had family overseas. We had family in Palestine, in the Emirates, and somewhere in Lebanon. And so wherever our family was, it was kind of my dad's obligation to make sure that they were taken care of, because we had already won the lottery by being in the U.S. We were already here. We were U.S. citizens. So no matter what my family did overseas, they could never achieve the level of success, i.e. luck, that we had by being born here and being raised here. And so it was always this constant struggle of, no matter what you did here, you still are sort of indebted to your family overseas, because they were the ones that were left behind. And we should always take care of them because they're family, because they're blood. And, after about 10, 15, 20 years of doing that, you start realizing, well, look, man, like, I got to be able to take care of myself first before I can take care of other people. You just can't pour from an empty cup. And so a lot of people are in that position. A lot of people, and it might not necessarily be family overseas. They might have parents or siblings, or, sometimes even your spouse is the one that's kind of really draining you financially because you haven't had that conversation yet. There is a time, and this happens with almost every successful person that I know, there's a time where you have to say, look, I have to cut off all of these expenses and just focus on myself and building my brand and my company and my business. And then once I've come to a point of at least minimum sustainability, then I can start overflowing, then I can start giving away some of the stuff that overflows from my own cup. And so that was a hard pill to swallow in the beginning, because you just seem like an asshole, right? Like, oh, you don't want to help your family and your friends and all that. No, I need to help myself first. Because if you're taking money away from me, the $1,000 that I give you is going to come back as zero in 1 month. Whereas $1,000 that I take and reinvest in myself is going to come back as $10,000. And then I can pay you $2,000 and not even worry about it. You see what I mean? So it's the power of compounding, coupled with understanding that your money shouldn't be tied to your emotions, and then holding off the people that matter just enough to where you can build yourself up. That's kind of how the system works, in the very, very early stages.
Well, and they say that on the airplane, right? When the oxygen mask drops, the first thing you do is put your oxygen mask on, then you can help the people around you. Because if you're not secure, then you can't help them become secure. And the same thing is true for money. You have to build your financial base. And then, as you said, you have even more of an abundance. You can help them even more, but you got to get yourself in order.
Oh, 100%. 100%. That's a great analogy.
So what were some of the messages you received around money from your parents?
Always save your money. Don't spend money on things that you don't need. Be smart. You don't need to buy that 20 ounce of Coca-Cola for 99 cents when you can get the 2-liter bottle in the back of the store for 69 cents. Buy in bulk, wholesale, always. Never pay retail. You can always get a better deal if you negotiate. Almost everywhere you go, you can negotiate. Because I grew up watching my mom negotiating in Walmart and in Kroger and at this place called the United Grocery Outlet. And she would take this newspaper from one store and show it to the cashier at another store and say, look, these tomatoes are 62 cents per pound here. Why are you charging me 69? And it was literally a fight for every single penny that we saved. So those are the lessons that I learned about finances: is save, buy wholesale, and build that nest egg because you never know if that money is going to disappear at some point. Now, to a certain degree, I agree with it, but to a much larger degree, I feel like if you're putting in too much effort coupon clipping, you can't be putting in enough effort growing your business, growing yourself, and expanding your horizons financially. So it's got to be that happy medium. You have to be able to save enough to where you know, okay, I've gotten to a point where now I can invest. Unfortunately, in my upbringing as a child, we just never got there.
You have to have harmony in life. And so you come from a culture like mine where it's natural to negotiate. And here you are talking about negotiating at Walmart. I remember when I was younger, I would negotiate at Home Depot. We still negotiate at Home Depot.
Yeah, of course.
Sears, negotiated at Sears. We're constantly negotiating with Verizon and what is that? Sirius XM. This time, the negotiation with Sirius XM this time was hilarious. I dialed them the day after my contract expired and they raised my rates by triple.
Uh-oh.
And so I dial the number and they're like, we're under COVID. Things are tight. We noticed you called. Would you like us to just cut your rate to $5 a month, which was like a 75% rate reduction and even cheaper than what I was previously negotiated. If that's good with you, just press 1 and we'll approve it. And so
wow.
Literally,
that never happens.
Well, because they knew. I mean, think about it. No, we don't drive the car anymore. Like, it sits in the garage 90%. They knew the radio's barely being used. It got 10 minutes of airplay a week. But it's my wife's car. She loves it. And fine, I'll pay $5 a month, $6 a month after negotiating. But until you start asking, these things don't happen. And the only reason I knew to call is because I've put a calendar invite that every year on this day, I need to call Sirius XM because my contract expired and they're going to raise my rates by 300%. So make a phone call, save a couple $100.
I think it's so smart to put things on your calendar, especially reminders to renegotiate a rate. If you're in an apartment and you know that it's coming time to renegotiate your lease, give yourself that 30 to 60 day kind of window so that you can call your landlord and say, hey, I know that my lease is coming up. I've been doing some research around town. I've noticed that these other places, and do your research legitimately, I've noticed these other places are giving me a discount. Are you going to be able to kind of match or give me a discount off of my current rate? Or do you recommend that I go and search elsewhere? The same thing applies with cars, with the Sirius XM subscriptions that you have. I don't know if you can call Netflix and do that, but I know that I've called Verizon and AT&T and negotiated a lot in the past. So putting those things on a calendar really, really helps. And doing that with your credit as well, asking for credit limit increases every 3 months because it helps with your debt to income ratio. It helps with building up your FICO score. I mean, putting those things on your calendar really makes a huge difference. I don't think enough people do that. And so if there's one piece of advice that I have for people to make sure that they're consistent with the things that matter financially is put it on your calendar. So I absolutely love that. I'm so glad you brought that up.
I live by my calendar. So if it's on the calendar, I do it. That's the other thing. You can't just put it on the calendar and not make the phone call. And for those people who don't like making the phone calls, there's actually services that will do this for you. So you'll give up half your savings, so be it, but half is better than nothing. So if you're that kind of person, find somebody to make the phone call for you.
I mean, that's literally my entire business model as a personal injury lawyer. You could probably figure out how to settle your case by yourself, talk to the insurance company, go see the right doctors, make sure you get all the necessary treatment after your car accident, and not go into any of the pitfalls that insurance companies set up. Or you could just pay me a little percentage and I'll take care of everything for you. That's kind of how it works. That's why those services always work, because if you can add value to people and basically give them free money where they have to put little to no effort, you're always going to have business. You're always going to have customers.
And that is very, very true. People are lazy, unfortunately. So you've got somewhat of an entrepreneurial journey from a very young age. Would you mind sharing a little bit about some of the things you did?
So I remember when I was in middle school, My mom drove a 1995 Nissan Sentra. And because we were always trying to maximize, we always wanted to make money on everything that we touched. My dad rented that 1995 Nissan Sentra to this one kid, this guy that rented the car out. He used it as like a taxi service. And on the side of the 95 Sentra, he had engraved the words "not for hire." Now, at the same time, this was basically our daily driver, right? And we were running the tire and wheel shop. So we wanted it to look kind of cool. So I remember I ordered these plastic spinner hubcaps, the 13-inch spinner hubcaps, the chrome hubcaps to go on my mom's 95 Nissan Sentra. So there's this distinct image in my mind when I was either in like 6th or 7th grade of my mom pulling up in this 1995 Nissan Sentra to Dalton Middle School and me being so frustrated that she's late. And like, I remember being so angry because she was late, not because I was embarrassed that she pulled up in a car with spinner hubcaps and "not for hire" engraved on the side, but because I only had 25 minutes to make it to the post office to ship off this audio bond amplifier, the A2200 HCT that I had been selling on eBay. And I didn't have enough time to make it to the post, package this item and ship it via USPS because I know they always close at 4:57 p.m. because they never give you until 5 p.m. And I was like, man, I'm going to get negative feedback on my eBay store because you decided to be late today. And I was just so frustrated. I was like 12 when that happened. I was 12 when I was selling $10,000 worth of electronics on eBay. And the crazy thing was I wasn't old enough to own a bank account, but my dad was. So all the money that I was making was going to my dad. And all this effort, like the crazy thing is I had developed this entrepreneurial mindset of learning how to buy something low and selling high and drop shipping before it was cool. And I'm saying like in middle school, I was doing this. I had this 6- and 7-figure work ethic from a very young age, but it never manifested itself in my own finances and in my own livelihood because it was all going to my dad and he had other obligations to the rest of his family members. So when I took that work ethic through law school and business school and then opened up my own practice, I found myself in a sea of mediocrity where every other lawyer just felt like things were just going to come to them. Like they were entitled to customers, like they were entitled to business, like they were somehow better than other people. And you take a scrappy kid that was plugging tires at 7 years old and trying to flag down people from Murray Avenue in Dalton, Georgia to try to get them to come and change their used tires and make $5 at a time, $20 at a time, and put them in an environment where with one single letter, I can make $1 million, literally. You've got a very, very dangerous man in this environment. And I don't use the word dangerous like, hey, you better watch out. I use it in the sense that I'm about to eat your lunch if you think that there's not other people like me, because you better believe the people that are going to come and eat my lunch are currently in law school right now. They're the ones that are hustling and going through these things. They're the immigrants that are coming from Nigeria and from South America and from Syria and from all these other countries that are having, wartime and poverty and famine. And those are the people, the immigrants that are coming to the U.S. that realize, dude, even at minimum wage, we're still doing way better than these other countries. So you can almost never take that hunger and that work ethic and that scrappiness out of me. It's going to stay with me no matter if there's $100 in my bank account or $100 million in my bank account. It's going to stay there because I don't do it for the money. I do it because I know what it's like to be on the other end of that, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to never go back.
It's when I was a kid, the common thing that moms would say to their kids were, finish all the food on your plate. There's a kid starving in China. And when I looked at my kids, I'm like, first of all, everyone's fat, so I'm not going to force you to eat the food on your plate. But you need to study hard because there's a kid in China studying 10 times harder than you. The world's changed and you got to keep up. And I think people don't realize how good they have it here. And that you do need to show up and do the work. People are not going to hand you everything. And I think a lot of people have taken their life for granted, unfortunately.
Man, you're absolutely right. Rock, let me ask you something. Have you ever been to China?
I have not been to China. I've been to India. Okay.
I'm sure it's very similar with respect to the haves and the have-nots. But I studied abroad in China, and I lived there in the summer of 2010 and 2021 and 2011. And during that time, I realized that, the ultimate sort of vision that I came about, the thing that came to my mind ultimately was that only the smartest and wealthiest are the ones that end up in the U.S. You know how they always say, like, oh man, Asians are so good at math, and there's the most doctors in the U.S. are like from Middle Eastern or Indian or Asian descent. Well, that's because only the cream of the crop end up here. But what about the other 1.3 billion that live in China? Well, when I was there, I realized that there's this system at the end of high school. And by the way, in elementary, middle, and high school, they don't just go to class from like 8 to 3 Monday through Friday. They have the educational activities, and then they have the extracurricular activities. So they're usually training or studying 10, 11, 12 hours a day. But at the end of high school, they have this one final exam that basically determines your entire fate. And there are students that pass and do very, very well, and they have the opportunity to go to college. But then there's some that miss the exam by 1 point, and now they can never get into college because of that. They can never get a legitimate job or a corporate job because of that. And so we kind of have, we've become almost used to having everything handed to us in the US. Like, you don't really need, you can be a high school dropout and still be a millionaire. As long as you make it through these elementary school, middle school, high school, as long as you just make it through, you're going to have an opportunity to go to college. And there's plenty of opportunities to go to college for free. You don't have to make everything, put all of your eggs in one basket with one exam that's going to determine your fate. And it's so different overseas because the people that don't succeed are the ones that either had a bad day, they've got family issues, they had death or poverty or something that they had to deal with that no one else really had to deal with. And now they're stuck with this sort of calamity for the rest of their lives. In the US, you can come up from just about anything. You can pick yourself up, start a business. You can incorporate a business for $99 on the internet, and start selling stuff online. You can become an eBay power seller literally in middle school while you're going to school. A lot of those opportunities don't exist in China and in other countries. And so what I realized from studying and living over there was that even the ones that were not quote unquote educated, that didn't have the opportunities that the more educated and the more wealthy Chinese people had, those people learned 10 to 11 languages when they were selling in the silk markets in Beijing. They were, no matter, hey, are you German? Are you Italian? Are you French? They come into the store in the silk market. They will sell you anything in any language. They're hungry. Like, they know that you're coming in there and they're going to take your money. They know that you've got their money and they need to take it from you. And it's just that hunger, like that strive for just getting to the next level financially. I almost don't see it. It's almost non-existent in the US. And I really wish people would travel more to see just how far people are willing to go to eat and make money in other countries. And then they'll realize how great we have it here.
And I don't disagree with you. On a side note, did you eat much meat in China?
I did up until I found out where that meat was coming from.
How did the meat compare to what you see in the United States?
Crazy thing is, we're used to boneless chicken in the U.S. That's not a thing. Like, they get the whole damn chicken, claws, talons, head, and all, and they just dump it into, whether they boil it, broil it, or whatever, and they chop up the entire chicken, bones and all, and then throw that into a soup. So the meat was never like cleaned and like properly like prepared for you like you have it in the U.S. But I did eat in some finer restaurants. We did have some like great lamb, and obviously the Peking duck is pretty incredible. So if there's any place that you want to have, duck, it's going to be in Beijing for sure.
That it is. And I noticed the same thing in India. The chickens that you get are scrawny. And that is, of course, until recently KFC opened up, and KFC's got fat chickens. I don't know where they get them from. Maybe they ship them in from the U.S. But the whole quality of food is dramatically different than what we're used to here.
I agree.
So one of the things that you talked about, you got out of law school, and of course you have to pay to go to law school, but one of the things I've heard you say is it's smart to get paid to learn. So can you talk a little bit, when you got out of law school, what happened?
Let me just take this back just a little bit because I think the history is really important here.
Okay.
So in Georgia, there's this HOPE scholarship. And the HOPE scholarship, as long as you maintain a 3.0 or a 3.2 GPA, they'll basically cover all of your tuition. And so I maintained a decent GPA. I got the HOPE scholarship, but then they also had the Pell Grant. The Pell Grant was based off of your financial abilities and your income. So I also applied for the Pell Grant. That was an extra $27.50 per semester. But I still didn't get to keep all that money because I had to pay for books and supplies and things like that. So I'd buy used books. Instead of renting them, I'd always buy them and sell them back. And I never went through the stores. I would always buy them online and then sell them to students on campus that actually needed them and say, hey, well, you can buy it here for $150. And I would scout, in front of the library or in front of Clements and Christie's, which was the bookstore at Dalton State College. And I would find students that needed to buy those books. So plus I applied to every single scholarship that I could possibly get. So I got paid to go to undergrad, and I got paid to travel and live in 3 other countries. Well, China twice and Mexico once, for study abroad trips. So I netted about 20 grand going to undergrad. That was the first thing, is maximizing all of the scholarships, grants, and any other opportunities that you can get, whether it's from the government, subsidized, unsubsidized. Get that free money, because there are literally people throwing money at you when you're in college. So that was the first thing. Getting paid to learn is an incredible thing. And trust me, that degree from Harvard is just as powerful as that degree from a local community college if both of y'all are ending up in the same job. And especially if you're going to start your own business, obviously. Now, then when it came to law school, I went to the highest value law school in the country. I applied to only 2 law schools, and the first one I got accepted immediately, but it was in another city, and I said, oh man, I don't want to go to another city. So I waited for Georgia State to send me the acceptance, and I applied to the part-time program because I wanted to work full-time in my business while going to law school, because up until I was about 21, which is when I graduated from college, school was always just a part-time thing. I never really worked hard at school. It was part-time. Like, even if you're taking 18 credit hours, it's just part-time, because there's 168 hours in a week. Let's say you spend 20 hours studying, you still got time for a full-time job or 2. And in my sense, I was working in running my own company, my car audio business. So I wanted to continue working while I went to law school. But when I got offered a scholarship opportunity, I realized that I don't need to turn this down. This is a great opportunity. So that's when I gave that business away to my younger brother and said, look, this is your baby now. I'm just going to focus on law school. Now, when I was in law school, it was about $6,800 per semester. I had the 20 grand that I had saved up. I put that into law school. So I paid for the first year out of pocket, and it also covered my books, tuition, and I was living about 35 miles away. So obviously I had some gas expenses too. That was the first year of law school. Second year, I ran out of money, and I was like, okay, well, shoot, I need to be able to afford school. So I applied for a loan and got $20,000 loan to pay for the second year of law school. That was also the year that I decided to start my MBA. So, and to save money, I doubled up on my hours. So in 1 year, I did 59 credit hours between my doctorate in law and my master's in business. because, the tuition caps off at a certain point. So you don't have to pay more. I think you just pay whatever the maximum is for a full-time credit hours, and that's it. So I'm like, all right, cool. Let me take all the hours I could possibly get. They wouldn't let me take more than 21 per semester. I took like 18 in the summer, 21 in the fall, and like 20 in the spring. The third year, I applied for a GRA position. It's a graduate research assistant position. In that position, they covered my tuition and they paid me a $2,000 a semester stipend. So now I'm coming back into the green, right? So I only had $20,000 in debt going to law school, even though, the first year I had to pay for my savings. The last year, the school basically paid me to go. And so I kept my costs really, really low. And right out of law school, I knew that I was going to have my own firm at some point, but I just didn't have the skills to run a law firm myself. So I actually took a job getting paid only $40,000 a year right out of law school. As soon as I graduated, I passed the bar. A month later, I'm scouring through my emails and I see this job posting. It says, hey, associate attorney position open. I said, all right, let me call them and see what happens. I happened to be 11 minutes down the road because I was still working at the shop. And I drove down there with my resume in hand, literally 10 minutes from that call, like 10 or 15 minutes after that call. I went in, did a stellar job in the interview, and got a job on the spot. Started 3 days later. From December 2015 to January to February of 2017, those 14 months, in total, I made like maybe $50,000 in that 14 months. But I learned invaluable things. I learned primarily how to not run a law firm. I learned how to not treat employees and not treat your clients. And I learned how to not invest. Sometimes people try to invest too early into things when they haven't figured out the systems on their own. And so I took all of that and basically just started creating a bunch of video content and legal advice content on social media. And in 2017, I just finished out the year just running, the cases from the trunk of my car. 2018 was my first full year in business and became a millionaire that year with $3.2 million in settlements. And in 2020, we had our first 8-figure year. And all of that really just kind of compounded from all the experience that I had, because even though I was saving money in college and in law school, the ability to not have too much loans and debt is what helped me be able to reinvest so quickly back into my business. So the importance of making the right financial decisions in college, in grad school, will ultimately catch up to you years later. It's not just let me borrow this money so I can get my education. You should treat it as if that debt is never going to go away, because it really doesn't. And it's going to haunt you until you figure out how to take care of it. So I think that anyone that learns how to build their credit and manage their debt early on, it's really a recipe for success, and it sets them up so that they can invest in themselves more quickly and more abundantly when that time comes.
Unfortunately, too many people today are kind of going the opposite way and asking for it to be forgiven. We shall see what happens. Today's episode is sponsored by Profit Answer Man Podcast. Did you know that most small business owners hate looking at their financials? It's one reason they may struggle with business success. The Profit Answer Man podcast helps them ensure they are profitable and can pay their employees and weather the storms we all have to face. It's built on the Profit First methodology of pay yourself first. The Profit Answer Man podcast is a must listen to for every small business owner and anyone who wants to help them survive and thrive. Check it out on your favorite listening platform.
Look, I don't mind if other people get their loans forgiven. It doesn't affect me. Like, yeah, I worked hard and I had to pay off my debt. But I also know that not everyone has the same upbringing and has this chip on their shoulder where you can drop me off literally anywhere in the world and I'll figure out a way to become successful. So it doesn't affect me if you get your loans waived. It would affect me if I had $100,000 in debt right now in student loan debt, and one person got theirs waived and the other, and I didn't. Yeah, I'd be pissed about that. But honestly, right now, man, like, like I'm good. I'm not in that camp where because I had to pay for my own loans and I had to work hard and study and fix myself, then you need to do the same thing. No, man, if the government gets to a point where they can help other people that actually need it, cool. I don't need that help right now. And I don't care if other people get help while I don't, because I don't need it. So I never really understood why people get irritated when someone else is getting help. They say, hey, no, you should pull yourself up by your bootstraps and take care of yourself. Dude, not everyone has the same circumstances. So no, man, if the government is going to waive people's debt, by all means do it. But, I just understand that money is going to come from somewhere.
Therein lies the problem. If the government was in the situation that they had a massive surplus and they spent it on wiping out debt, so be it. But they're more like in the situation that your dad was in, and it seems like it's going to get worse. But anyway, we're not here for politics. Let's talk about life. You learned some valuable lessons about how to hire and pay people and how to take care of them. I'd love for you to share that story.
It's very simple. If you have an employee that is tremendously valuable to your organization, then pay them like you mean it. Don't wait until they get to a point where they're frustrated and they feel like you're not taking care of them and that everyone else around them is making money and getting all these opportunities before you come up to them proactively and offer them a bonus, offer them incentive, show them your appreciation. The biggest thing that I learned when I was an employee for 14 months before I started my law practice was that rock star employees deserve to get treated like rock stars. And simultaneously, at the same time, the underperformers shouldn't be elevated and treated the same as the people who are busting their ass every single day. So I learned, and by the way, it was in front of me because I was getting paid the same as an assistant. And that assistant, when she answered the phone, by the way, I had a doctorate in law and a master's in business, and this assistant just happened to be a friend of a friend. So she was getting paid pretty much the same as I was. And when she answered the phone, she messed up a case so bad that I would say translated into a $5 million loss for that company, for the law firm that I was working at. And I learned very quickly that if you hire people based off of their skills only, well, let me take that. Let me step back a little bit because there's really two sides to the coin here. If you hire people based solely off of your, how much you like them, and their personality without any attention to their skills, obviously it's a very dangerous situation. But if you also have people that you hire based solely off of skills, this was another problem that I noticed, where they have an incredible amount of skill, but they don't have a great personality, they don't have an attitude, they don't have a can do, will do, I'll do whatever it takes attitude, and they bring the overall energy of the company down. Those are also people that you shouldn't keep around. So during the 14 months of my employment, I learned that you should keep the rock stars at any cost. No matter what it took, you had to keep and take care of your rock stars. You had to eliminate and cut out the cancers as early as possible, because if you don't, they're going to infect other people in your organization. And eventually you're going to have to cut a much bigger piece than you can afford to get rid of. And honestly, most importantly, when your business is doing well, don't treat it like a piggy bank. Take that money and reinvest it back into your staff, back into your infrastructure, and give your people what they need in order to succeed. So when I have new employees that start with my company, I tell them, hey, whatever you need to order, because we're working from home, whatever you need, put together a list and I'll have the office assistant order it for you. If you need an ergonomic keyboard, you need this comfortable mouse, if you need a $500 gaming chair, you need whatever you need. But just know, I'm going to give you all the tools that you need to succeed. And then once it's time to deliver, you better deliver. I didn't have that environment when I was working as an associate attorney. And I knew that I didn't want to have that kind of environment in my own firm.
And it's important. I think this is where I know in the corporate world, it gets very political. And it's not based on, again, as you talked about, who delivers. It's unfortunately based on relationships, which is good. And I encourage people to build relationships to get doors opened. But there's got to be a fine balance on the work side of actually delivering the value that needs to be delivered and making sure that it's done correctly.
Absolutely.
So you've spent quite a bit on personal development. Can you share a little bit about that journey and how much you've spent?
Oh, I love this question. Okay. So 2018 was the year that I finally became a millionaire. I started investing in my business and in myself in ways that I didn't even think was possible. But in 2018, I learned a couple things. Taxes are real and you got to pay the government. You got to pay to play, right? And I learned that it's so stupid to cut a 6-figure check to the government when you can just get a 40% discount on literally anything that you need for your own personal development and your own business investing. And that 40% discount is what you would pay in taxes, right? So I've been following this guy on social media, and I actually have a call with him, right after this. It's funny that you mentioned it. So I was following this guy on social media, and I saw that he was doing a great job with Facebook advertising. He was attracting so many customers and clients to his funnel and to his Facebook page. I was like, dude, I want to learn what this guy is doing. He wasn't a lawyer. He wasn't a professional, wasn't even educated, had been bankrupt a couple of times, been in prison several times. And by all intents and purposes, this was, for everyone from the outside looking in, this was a washed up ex-convict. But for some reason, he had a massive following and people were buying whatever he had to sell. So I just bit the bullet and decided, you know what? I need to meet this guy and learn what he is doing. And this is so important for anyone that's listening to this. It is so important because now I'm starting to see exactly how valuable that connection was. In 2018, immediately after I had paid off all of my law school debt and became a millionaire, I realized that I need to pay this guy $25,000 to learn about Facebook ads. And whether or not he taught me everything that I needed to know, I just knew that I needed to spend time with this person to get into his head. And so the $25,000 was for a mastermind that you would fly out to and like 6 months of business coaching and a bunch of videos and development and things like that. And honestly, I didn't watch any of those videos. I only went to one mastermind and I only had one meeting with this guy. And for me, that $25,000, I would do it over and over and over again because it was the best investment that I made that year. When I visited him, I learned that I needed to have an in-house video studio. I saw how it was set up. I saw how he had the videographer set up in-house. I saw how he was creating content. And I realized that the content that you produce on social media is what funnels everything else into your business. And that realization, because it was just like, it was an aha moment, an experience of such surrealism. I saw it in front of me. He's got the green screen. He's got the videographer in the background. He's got the video editor in the back chopping up videos. And they use the area around them to consistently shoot new content. Because I learned that, in 24 months, my business went from 7 figures to 8 figures. I became the most followed personal injury lawyer in America on Instagram. I have over 1,500 digital ads that are running. And now I have a media company that's specifically designed to help other lawyers and professionals create social media content to generate clients. All of that from that one meeting that I had with this ex-convict out in Texas. And I'm telling you, because of the meeting that I had with him, I was able to tap into his network. And I'll tell you what, man, there are very few 8-figure and 9-figure earners who aren't extremely well connected. People that start making money, they attract other people with money and resources and opportunities. And when I met this guy and he was doing all the things that I thought I wanted to do, I realized his network was way more valuable than his knowledge. And that's what I bought into. So the following year, I spent 70 grand for a mastermind network. So, and now on average, I spend 6 figures in personal development every single year. And I learned that you don't have to find someone that's smarter than you or better than you in every aspect of their life. You only need someone to coach you on one thing. Very rarely you see professional athletes training with someone who's a better athlete than them. They're not necessarily a better athlete. Sometimes they're training them on their mindset. Sometimes they're training them on their stamina, on their nutrition, on things that they specifically need help with. And so finding a coach or a mentor that aligns exactly with your weak areas and things that you haven't quite learned yet, and understanding that you just don't know what you don't know, man, that's a blank check right there. And I'll pay that. I'll write whatever amount you need in that check every single day if you can teach me something that I didn't know that's going to drastically change the trajectory of my business. So yeah, that's why I invest 6 figures a year in personal development. That's why I'm going to continue doing it, because that's the reason that my business is never stagnant.
And it's the attitude of never stop learning. You've got to keep going. Have you heard of the book, They Ask You Answer?
I have not. I have a whole stack of books here that I need to read, but I don't have that one.
So that one is built on doing video marketing. And the guy ran a pool company. And what he realized is, as salespeople selling pools, the amount of time it takes to drive out to see a client, explain stuff to the client, drive back to the office, create a proposal, answer questions. It was taking an inordinate amount of time. And everyone's got the same questions. And so what he started to do was he started creating videos. Again, They Ask You Answer, about all of the standard questions people would ask. And he put them up on his website, and he just kept adding to it. And they would walk around as they would install pools, and they would explain the process. And, should I get a diving board? Well, here are the pluses and minuses of a diving board. Here's the pluses and minuses of everything. So people started going to his site, and instead of him having sales calls, people would call up and said, we're ready to order a pool. How much for this? And I know exactly what I want.
Is this by Marcus Sheridan?
It is Marcus Sheridan, yes.
Okay. As you're saying this, I literally hopped on Amazon and just ordered the book.
Yeah, he's awesome. I've heard him speak. The last time I was out in the real world, he was actually a speaker at Social Media Marketing World last year.
By the way, Rocky, that's like one of the coolest gifts that I've gotten in the past was when someone has a book recommendation and they just send you a free book just as a gift. I can't tell you how thoughtful, like just by you doing this now, it brought up some memories in my mind. Like, oh, I know some people that need help with video marketing. I'm going to just send this book as a gift to them. It's a $20 extremely thoughtful gesture. And thank you for that, because I'm going to take what you just gave me and, and keep paying it forward. So thank you.
You are welcome. One of the things you also talked about was nurturing your soul. What did you mean by that?
I don't remember in which context I said that, but if it's something that I said, I can almost guarantee you it was in the context of religion and faith. And I try to be a religious person because I feel like my guide in life is my religion. And I feel like a lot of us get carried away in our day-to-day activities and in just worldly goals. And sometimes we don't think enough about the afterlife. And if there is a hereafter, we don't think about that enough. We don't think about whether we're leaving a legacy that is going to live on forever, or if we're just doing things for the present and for the moment. And so, and it really goes both ways, whether you're a religious person or not. Are you working every single day just for the sake of working, or are you helping other people and making their lives easier? And I used to, be so obsessed with making money and working and growing my business that I would only spend that money on myself. And then when I started spending, or honestly investing that money in other people, it created and it unleashed this new level of happiness that I didn't think was possible. And so nurturing your soul to me really, really involves getting your mind right, your faith right, your soul aligned with your true higher purpose, and then understanding that all of the material objects that you have and the money and the resources are best spent in the service of others. And so that's my perspective on that.
And it's funny because you're in a profession that quite a few people are out of alignment. They were told to be a lawyer where they had some dream, and it's not at all in alignment with what they love. And I don't know if you've seen that I'm sure you've seen that with many of the lawyers you probably have to deal with.
I mean, I think there are so many lawyers. There's 1.3 million lawyers in the United States. And that's almost like a 300-to-1 ratio, including babies. So like even babies get representation. And so there's so many different personalities and thought processes. But what that also means is that you run into a lot of average lawyers because the numbers dictate that half of them are going to be below average and the other half are going to be above average. But there's that 80% or even 90% that really just fall in that mediocre, not really too ambitious, just kind of going through life. I'll treat this thing as a job. And if I can make a lot of money at it, great. If not, I don't see a higher purpose in my legal service to others. But I've just shaped this perspective that I don't have to be broke in the service of others. Some people assume that and we were talking about this earlier, some people assume that if you really want to be a servant to other people, then you can't by nature be wealthy or financially successful. And I've found that my best use of my time and my energy is not going and shoveling dirt and planting trees with my bare hands and laying physical bricks for these orphanages and these hospitals and these soup kitchens, but instead to use my mind and my abilities to build my business so that I can make more money to donate to those causes. Because it's easier for me to write $1 million check to a cause that I believe in than to take 6 months off and go build, sustainability projects in Africa or in the Middle East or in South America. It would be detrimental to me and to my business and to the families that I support with the dozens of employees that I have. So I became self-aware of that. And I realized, look, it's okay to make more money. It's okay to have a business that's financially successful. But I get fulfilled by donating that money and donating enough of that to a cause that I believe in. So this year, my goal is to write just at least one 6-figure check to a cause that I believe in. I've consistently invested and donated like 5 figures every year. But this year, I want to make it the new standard of 6 figures in donations every year. And I think that lawyers that don't see the potential in their field and in their careers are depriving other people from the goodness that they could otherwise give.
Very, very interesting. We always like to get people to take action. Based on our conversation, what's one action step people can take to move forward this week?
I think it really depends on where you are in your life. If you're a business owner, at least one piece of action that I would take is make sure that your friends and family know what you do. I would start there. And I'm speaking just to business owners now. If you're a business owner, first, make sure that your friends and family know what you do. That starts with your personal Facebook page. That starts with your local networking groups, your church, your organizations, extracurriculars. Make sure people know what you do. And it could literally be as simple as you wearing a branded shirt of your company when you go to that next event, when you hop on that next Zoom call, or passing out business cards wherever you happen to be. Let people know who you are. And the easiest way to do that is by posting content on social media for your personal page in a way that showcases your abilities and showcases what you have to offer without advertising and seeming sleazy like you're trying to ask for business. Because I understand there's that sort of interaction where you don't want people to think it's just all business on your personal page. But if you're already there, then the second thing that I would recommend is create video content that you haven't created before. Try a different type of video where you either answer a frequently asked question in your business, just like you were saying with the book that you recommended. You answer a frequently asked question, hold the camera up, hold your phone up at a 90-degree angle or at horizontal or vertical. Try selfie style videos. Try a video that's stationary. Try doing it while you have someone hold the video while you're driving in the car. So you're driving and talking at the same time. Do a video that's a sort of pattern interrupt of something that's on your mind related to a frequently asked question in your business, and post that on social media and ask for creative or constructive criticism from people. I think that we're not marketing ourselves enough because we think that it's embarrassing or that it's a turnoff for other people. But I'll tell you what, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Last time I went to the bank and tried to deposit a whole bag of other people's opinions, for some reason, they didn't accept it. So don't worry about what other people have to say. If you genuinely believe that you have a product or service that other people deserve to have, then you will never be shy or embarrassed of marketing yourself.
And we all have to market ourselves. That's a big part of life, and it's a part of life that people don't really think about. It doesn't matter whether you own a business or not. You are always in the business of marketing your brand, and you have to figure out what that is and what you want to deliver to the world.
Absolutely, man. Market yourself. It's like dance like nobody is looking, right? Market yourself like everyone's opinions don't matter.
It's time to learn the secrets of life. What's your secret to living an abundant life?
First, make sure that you take care of yourself before you can give to others. You can't pour from an empty cup, but when your cup starts to overflow, give without any expectation in return.
And that's kind of what I tell people, build your foundation. And once you build your foundation, then you have the ability to do everything else. And it becomes a lot easier. Too many people don't build a foundation, which is essentially what you're saying.
Absolutely.
What did you learn later in life that you wish you would have learned sooner?
I wish I was nicer to people. I didn't realize that being an asshole doesn't really get you that far. And I thought that it was okay to be mean or to be condescending or disrespectful to people because, well, their feelings don't matter and I'm just going to be focusing on my business and myself and, I just care about money and blah, blah, blah. That was the biggest mistake I ever made. If there's one thing that I could go back and change or tell my younger self, it would be to be nicer to people because it costs absolutely nothing, but it can give you possibly everything.
And that is so true. I think maybe it isn't. I know generationally, it has changed dramatically in the way that the younger workforce expects to be treated versus the way it used to be 20, 30, 40 years ago. So we can all be a little bit nicer.
Absolutely.
If you were to give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
Don't chase the money when you are young. Chase the experiences. Chase the networks. Chase the opportunities that you would never be able to have in the future, like traveling in the world with your friends and living in, $10 a night, $20 a night hostels and couch surfing. Chase the opportunities of meeting people in other countries and in other faiths and cultures, and get to know them and understand how the world works. And no matter what, do not stay in the same place geographically, physically, your entire life. Go somewhere else. There's people that have lived in their small town, and they've stayed in their city or their state their entire lives, and they've never left. Go to other places and spend a significant amount of time there. 3 days, 5 days, 7 days isn't enough to really experience another culture or another religion or country. Go and experience new things, and I promise you will have a much clearer and more abundant appreciation of how great your life is.
And I've come to kind of a change of heart on that. I think people should spend their 20s just exploring and learning instead of hard charging at work. Because I think if they do that, they will have a much greater long-term game over time.
I think you can do both. I think you can travel and get experiences and learn from others while you're younger. And so I've been in my 20s for a third of my life, right? I just turned 30. So, it depends on what kind of experiences you've had. So if you started traveling when you were 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, it's different from your late 20s and not that there's a specific time frame for anyone. I'm just telling you what happened with me. Some people take a 5th-year victory lap when they're trying to finish their undergrad. Some people like to take a year off to travel and go to join the Peace Corps. I think you just need to open yourself up to more experiences, and living for the weekend and just partying with other people every single weekend. There's I don't know what you're celebrating. I really don't, man. Like, take that $50 per weekend that you would otherwise be spending. Go on google.com/flights and find the cheapest flights to a foreign country, place that you've never visited before, and just go spend 2-3 weeks there, and then just disconnect for a little bit and find your true self. And if you want to take friends with you, go for it. I mean, there's just so much more you can do besides going and partying every single weekend. So if you're 18 and you're listening to this, if you're partying every single weekend, ask yourself, what on earth am I celebrating?
I guess it's more about escaping. If people would like to find you, connect, learn more about your law practice, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yes, my name is Ali Awad, and I help injured people make a wad of money. You can literally Google a wad of money, but the easiest way to find me is CEO Lawyer on all the social media platforms. I am a personal injury lawyer. I specialize in car, truck, and catastrophic injury cases. That's what I do for a living, and I absolutely love it because I can impact so many people's lives at a time where it seems like it's the worst possible and lowest point of their lives. So CEO Lawyer on all social media platforms. I give free legal and business advice all the time. And if you are listening to this podcast or this show and you want to connect with me, just mention, hey, I was on the Rockies show, I was on Rockies podcast. I heard you on there. Just wanted to connect. You send me a message with that in Instagram DM. I will flag it and make sure that I personally respond to you. And if there's any way that I can be of value or of service to you, please let me know. This is the reason that we do what we do.
That's awesome. And I'll also put that in the show notes for everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Rocky. It was my pleasure.
How grateful are you for all that you have and the amazing opportunities we receive living in the United States? How's your learning journey going? What are you doing to improve yourself? I always wonder how I can put the fire in the belly of my kids so they don't get complacent in life. It's a delicate balance. Did you know most lawyers are not great business people? That's why when you combine business skills in an area where people are bad at business, you have the ability to leap ahead of the competition. That's what Ali did. This week's action step, and you don't have to be in business to market yourself and what you do. But if you are in business, build your personal brand and promote your company. And if you work for an organization, then do it for that organization or for the skills you have. Building your personal brand, regardless of whether you're a business owner or not, is super important. It helps in the job market as well. I always tell people you should run your personal life like a business, because at the end of the day, if you're going to work, you are a business. You just happen to have one customer, your employer. Next week, we have on Jeff Venn to talk about the 7 rules to live by. I'm going to ask him about this quote of his. Many people will tell you where to go, what to do, and how to live. But there's a higher path and calling inside of you that only you can unearth. It's time to stop living by other people's scripts and expectations for your life and have your own awakening. It's a great conversation, and I can't wait for you to listen to it. Hey, if you like today's episode, would you do me a favor and share it? Who do you know who could benefit from listening to Ali's story? I'd appreciate it. Thanks for listening. Have an abundant week.